Vampires have been a part of the popular media we consume ever since Bramstroker wrote his iconic book Dracula in 1897, which captivated the minds of its readership. These creatures, whose origins are rooted in folklore, religion, and history, have since captured the imagination of occultists and ordinary folks alike. From being portrayed as hideous fiends to beautiful immortals who have a penchant for drinking human blood, the Nosferatu are arguably the most popular monsters alongside werewolves. To this end, anime and manga have been no strangers to these blood-sucking fiends, featuring in their stories for as long as we can remember. In today's marvelous anime video, we'll be looking at some of the best retro anime in which these monsters have made their appearance. The animes we're focusing on today will mostly have mature themes, including graphic violence, sexual content, and cannibalism, to name a few, making them unsuitable for younger audiences. While you might be familiar with some of these works, we're sure you'll find some underrated gems here that you've never heard about, so be sure to stick around to the end of this video to find out all there is to know about them. With that out of the way, here are 8 retro ultra-violent vampire animes featuring jaw-droppingly beautiful animation from the late 90s to the early 2000s. Let's begin. Oh, but before we get into our explanation, we have a very small request. If you like our content, please support us by subscribing to the channel. This is a small click for you, but for us, it means a lot. Thank you. Let's begin. Vampire Hunter D. Bloodlust. 1985. Vampire Hunter D. Bloodlust is arguably the definitive animated adaptation based on Hideyuki Kikuchi's long-running series. The world of Vampire Hunter D is grim and gothic, filled with rich lore about ancient wars, decaying civilizations, and supernatural beings. Set in a post-apocalyptic world following a nuclear fallout caused by the vampire nobility to rebuild the world in their image, their society has fallen into decay after years of decadence, with them now being a hunted race. Dark rumors amongst the vampires speak of Count Dracula, or the sacred ancestor, having bedded a human female by the name of Mina the Fair, probably alluding to Mina Harker from the original Bram Stoker novel, which resulted in the birth of a Dampier. Other rumors speculate that he was the result of genetic experimentation done by his father, Dracula, on human and vampire women. Regardless of the true nature of his origins, it's clear that D is no ordinary half-breed, as he seems to be much stronger than any vampires alive, while only microscopically sharing their weaknesses. Accompanied by his symbiotic left hand, D wanders the wastelands of the future. He's a lone wolf who's said to have walked the earth for over 10,000 years, eliminating supernatural threats and hunting his own kind. There's an air of mystique that surrounds D's beautiful visage, which makes him appear almost otherworldly to the ordinary folk who come across him. Hideyuki Kikuchi himself was eager when the opportunity presented itself for Bloodlust to come into existence, as he had felt that the previous film had looked cheap. The main character design was left in the capable hands of the legendary artist Yoshitaka Amano, best known for his works in Final Fantasy, Speed Racer, and the Gwyn Saga, with another legendary figure, Yoshiaki Kawajiri, at the helm of the project as the director, whose notable works included Wicked City, Ninja Scroll, and The Animatrix. A star-studded production had been assembled to deliver this gothic horror romance masterpiece to the audience. The plot revolves around D, who has been hired by the father of an abducted female aristocrat to hunt down the vampire responsible. Over the course of the film, D must work together with a bounty-hunting crew called the Marcus Brothers, hired by the girl's elder brother. As they battle werewolves, shapeshifters, and other mutants on their quest to rescue the girl, they find out that the damsel isn't really in distress, complicating the plot further. What follows is a brutal tale of forbidden love and sacrifice. It's a beautifully macabre spectacle crafted amidst a ruined world filled with crumbling castles and broken people, both mortals and immortals alike. Vampire Hunter D is one of the greatest works that marries the dark fantasy and sci-fi genres effortlessly, leaving behind a work that manages to be more than the sum of its parts. Helsing Ultimate, 2005. This anime is arguably one of the coolest portrayals of Dracula and vampires anime's ever done. Of course, we're talking about the second animated adaptation of Kota Hirano's manga Helsing, titled Helsing Unlimited. Following the lukewarm response to the first adaptation of the manga, Helsing Ultimate really upped the ante in terms of animation quality, production value, and overall storytelling in comparison to its predecessor. It does all of this while retaining the things that the first anime adaptation got right, staying faithful to the manga and delivering an overall more polished product. The story revolves around an aristocrat called Integra Van Helsing, who is the descendant of the legendary Dr. Van Helsing, a character that Hirano borrows from the original Bram Stoker's Dracula. In this universe, Helsing didn't just defeat the Count, but managed to subjugate him to servitude. Fast forward to the future, and he's the secret weapon of Integra and her Helsing organization in their battle against infernal creatures like other vampires, ghouls, and other supernatural threats. Alucard is portrayed as an enigmatic anti-hero who's nigh invincible and has a pretty sadistic streak running through him. Even though he shows absolute loyalty to Integra, he revels in his vampiric powers and their use in battle. His character is beautifully layered, treading a fine line between the monster that he is and the ancient being who has had millennia to contemplate his existence. We also get to see his softer side when he takes on Saris Victoria as his subordinate. His relationship with Saris further adds a human touch to Alucard's character, contributing to its complexity. In Helsing Ultimate, Alucard goes up against everyone from other vampires to the Catholic Church and even Nazi remnants of Hitler's Third Reich. The anime is filled with brutal carnage and graphic violence that includes themes of cannibalism and necrophilia. The violence in Helsing Ultimate is rendered with a stylish flair that, instead of overshadowing the narrative, enhances it greatly. The blood, gore, and brutality of Helsing Ultimate fit its grim tone and stakes, making the fights feel more impactful and memorable. What makes Helsing Ultimate compelling is the fact that it combines graphic violence with measured storytelling. It's a series that delivers a raw, unadulterated, visceral spectacle without sacrificing the complexity of its characters and the story it's trying to tell. Helsing Ultimate is easily one of the best vampire animes to come out in history, and it rightfully takes its place in this video. Blood, the Last Vampire, 2000. Blood, the Last Vampire is the prequel to the hit television series Blood Plus. Directed by Hiroyuki Kitakubo and written by Kenji Kamiyama, it's an action-packed 47-minute-long feature film that sets up the events for the subsequent animes and video games in the franchise. The story revolves around Seiya Otonashi, a young female vampire hunter in 1966, and her battles against vampiric beings known as chiropterans. She is a cold-blooded killer who seems to be assigned targets by someone in the US government through a handler called David. We know from the television series that David is just the alias of the person who is assigned to be the liaison between the government and Seiya. Together, her mission takes her to hunt chiropterans across the globe until she is given a mission to take down one of these blood-sucking monsters that has infiltrated an American Yokota military base in western Tokyo. With the US government in full swing in preparation for the Vietnam War, having a chiropteran threat within the base becomes an emergency they have to deal with immediately. To this end, Seiya is enrolled in a local school near the base as a cover for her mission to track and kill the vampire. This setting is very familiar to the sequel TV series, where Seiya is once again a high school student who lives near an American military base. The key difference here is that in the TV series, she lives with her adoptive family in a loving environment. However, there's no trace of this kind and warm-hearted girl in the film. The tone of the entire movie is dark and filled with violence that's only enhanced by the fact that it's perpetrated by a seeming minor, even though we find out that's not the case during the course of the movie. Seiya is revealed to be a vampire, and not just any ordinary vampire, but perhaps the progenitor of her kind. She's been alive for at least 200 years prior to the events of the film. As she starts her life in high school, she soon discovers that there is more than one vampire on the loose, and these creatures are none other than her own classmates, Linda and Sharon. Seiya shows zero hesitation in slaying Linda and gravely wounding Sharon when a third chiropteran is revealed, making its way towards the base. As she battles the remaining monsters and destroys them, Seiya vanishes into the night, leaving the mangled corpses of the monsters behind. When the only eyewitness to the entire massacre is interviewed, no one believes her, as the entire scene has been cleaned up by the crew that works with Seiya. While narratively thin compared to its sequel, mostly due to its time constraints, this movie is packed with a tense and gritty atmosphere that has the audience on the edge of their seats for the duration of the film. The film also features expertly crafted fluid animation and fight choreography that really sets it apart from its contemporaries. The movie ends in an open-ended nature, hinting at a much greater ongoing war between humans and chiropterans. Blood, the Last Vampire's haunting atmosphere and iconic lead character make this short but polished film a cult classic and a must-watch. Trinity Blood, 2005. Moving from one vampire-infested post-apocalyptic world to the next, let's now talk about one of the most underrated vampire animes out there, Trinity Blood. This dark fantasy sci-fi series is based on a series of light novels by Japanese novelist Sunao Yoshida. It's replete with gothic aesthetics and religious symbolism and deals with profound themes of coexistence, war, and existential crises. In this universe, the attempted colonization of Mars led to the discovery of 2 alien viruses that forever changed the course of human history. The colonizers imbibe one of the viruses, turning themselves into vampires called Methuselah, while the other virus is injected into the bodies of 4 genetically engineered babies. As the remnants of humanity continue to fight on Earth, they bring about an Armageddon. This cataclysmic event happens 900 years before our story starts, and the colonizers of Mars return to their home planet to aid in its rebuilding, but are met with resistance from the surviving humans. The 4 Krusniks, as the bioengineered babies are called, get roped into this conflict with Cain and Seth, siding with Methuselah while Lilith begins working on the Vatican Church, which is a powerful faction that claims to be working on behalf of humans. After madness descends upon Cain, just like his biblical counterpart, he murders Lilith, leading to the otherwise neutral Abe joining the Vatican as their special agent in the guise of a priest. 900 years after all these events occur, the power struggle continues between these factions under the guise of a tenuous peace. Abel Nightroad, a goofy priest, must accept his destiny as he works to protect humanity from supernatural threats, while his brother Cain proves to be a thorn in his side every step of the way. What most people don't know is that the Krusniks are vampires themselves, but unlike their cousins who feed on humans and livestock, a Krusnik draws sustenance from feeding on other vampires. The anime paints a unique picture, combining political intrigue and muddied lines when it comes to the topics of morality. It sets up a compelling conflict-driven world that, despite being a post-apocalyptic world, is not completely in ruins. Unfortunately, due to the passing of the creator, the series was left incomplete for the longest time before it was finished by his close friends Kentaro Yasui and Kyo Kyuju. If you're into gothic and steampunk visuals, morally gray characters, and a different take on vampires, Trinity Blood is definitely worth checking out. Vampire Princess Miyu, 1997. The brainchild of Narumi Kakunouchi and Toshiki Hirano, Vampire Princess Miyu is the animated adaptation of the eponymous manga by the same creators. The series was initially adapted into a 4-part OVA and later into a television series with 26 episodes. It's a dark fantasy series that combines traditional Japanese motifs in it. The main character, Miyu, is a child born from the union of a human and a shinma, which are a type of supernatural being. Depending on whether it's the anime series, OVA, or the manga, the origin story of Miyu varies ever so slightly. In the TV series and the OVA, both of her parents are killed, while in the manga, her mother simply forgets about her existence. In fact, as Miyu awakens into her role as a guardian tasked with defeating and ushering the malevolent Shinma into the world, she seems to slip from the memory of ordinary people. As a half-breed, Miyu is a daywalker who possesses extraordinary powers like levitation, teleportation, transdimensional portals, and fire attacks. However, as a vampire, or more accurately, a dhampir, she still needs to drink blood as sustenance. However, despite her thirst, Miyu chooses the people she drinks from very carefully. These individuals are normally ones with a tragic background, and she takes their blood in exchange for an eternal, everlasting dream of their choice where they can be with their loved ones forever. As Miyu and her sidekick Larva embark on adventures to protect humans from these demonic entities, she must contend with several melancholic issues that plague her. Each episode revolves around a supernatural mystery where a human has unknowingly come into contact with a Shinma. Due to her status as a dhampir and her role as the guardian vampire, Miyu holds on desperately to her humanity, which is slowly slipping away. The series is definitely not for children, as it can get very creepy as it provides a dark, surreal tone of the occult. The beautifully hand-drawn frames, along with the dark and mystical tone of the anime, make Vampire Princess Miyu one of the best retro vampire anime series to have ever come out. Nightwalker, The Midnight Detective, 1998. Based on the computer game of the same name, Nightwalker, The Midnight Detective is a hidden gem among 90s anime. It's a blend of supernatural, horror, mystery, and detective elements in a noir setting. The series follows the adventures of a private detective called Tatsuhiko Shido, who moonlights as a vampire vigilante protecting unwary humans from minor demons known as the Nightbreed. The Nightbreed have the ability to possess human beings, forcing these individuals to commit crimes and act on their basest instincts. He works closely with his former partner, Yayoi Matsunaga, who lets Shido feed on her blood in exchange for her expertise in handling supernatural cases to aid her in her work at the NOS, an anti-Nightbreed crime unit. Shido, who harbors a far more pensive and serious side to him underneath the veneer of a callous and maverick public persona, is haunted by his own past, which he ironically doesn't remember too clearly. However, when Shido is forced to reveal his true identity to Riho, a young girl who is his secretary and whose parents have been killed by vampires, things begin to spiral out of control at a pretty rapid pace. With his obsessive former master Kane, the vampire responsible for turning Shido into a Nosferatu on his trail once more, he must find a way to protect the life he has built and the ones he holds dear from his former ally and mentor. As the story progresses, he learns that Kane's grand scheme, called the Golden Dawn, is still in motion. The plan has a larger implication over all the creatures of the night, and Shido must finally stop running and confront the very man who turned him. The anime's plot is presented to the audience in an episodic nature, with the overarching storyline of Kane and Shido. While it didn't garner widespread acclaim from the mainstream crowd, Nightwalker, the Midnight Detective, has achieved cult status amongst fans of 90s anime and detective fiction with horror elements. Blood Plus 2005. Blood Plus expands on the legend of Seiya Oronashi's story, which was left kind of open-ended in the Blood, the Last Vampire film. The story is set 39 years after the events of the movie in Okinawa, Japan. Seiya is seen living with her family, comprised of 2 brothers and a father, near the real-life U.S. Kadena Air Base. She is seen as a bubbly teenager enjoying her high school life. She seems to have zero recollection of her previous life as a vampire hunter or even her true nature. However, all of this is shattered one day when she's attacked by a chiropteran as she learns that the only way to defeat these creatures lies in her blood. Her blood has the unique property of crystallizing, allowing Seiya to shatter them with ease. Armed with her iconic katana that allows her to coat it with her blood and her trusted Haji by her side, she embarks once more on her forgotten mission to rid the world of these monsters once and for all. Along the way, she also learns about her true heritage as she comes to terms with her own bloody and traumatic past. The anime leans heavily into the dichotomy of blood and family, as Seiya learns that blood is not always thicker than water. A grand conspiracy that spans the globe reveals itself with an antagonist who seems to be hell-bent on bringing Seiya to her knees. The anime has a deeply unsettling atmosphere with loads of violence and blood. While not quite as gory as many of the hardcore animes of the 80s and 90s, Blood Plus has plenty of body parts flying about and blood splattering everywhere. It also deals with themes like the corruption of innocence and the meaning of family and morality, all of which are presented in a somber and compelling fashion. It presents to the audience a fascinating vampire mythology replete with queens, chevaliers, and minor chiropterans, which adds layers to this universe. While it's more well-known than its prequel, Blood Plus is still considered an underrated gem. If you're looking for an epic, character-driven story with tragic elements and a mature theme set in a lore-rich world, Blood Plus is the anime for you. Jojo's Bizarre Adventure 1993. If you're a fan of anime and manga, it's most likely that you've come across Hirohiko Araki's Jojo's Bizarre Adventure at one point or another. It's the longest ongoing manga series with a total of 134 volumes as of April 2024 since its inception in 1987. The series is currently divided into 9 story arcs, with each following a new protagonist who bears the nickname Jojo and battles vampires and other supernatural creatures. The manga has received numerous anime adaptations covering the various arcs of the series, starting from an OVA in 1993, which adapted the 3rd arc of the series called The Stardust Crusader. It would receive another anime adaptation that would cover much more of the manga from 2012, running all the way up to 2022. The entire saga of JoJo's Bizarre Adventure kicks off when the jealous adopted son of the Joestar family, Dio Brando, uses a mysterious stone mask to gain the powers of an immortal vampire. Following this, generations of Joestars are drawn into an epic conflict to stop their family's nemesis. Dio is a cruel, sadistic, and yet undeniably charismatic villain with an over-the-top flair. The series is replete with mature action sequences and is definitely not an anime for children. It sets up several thematic dichotomies like life versus death, purity versus corruption, and human will versus monstrous ambition. The use of vampirism in this iconic franchise is more than just sucking blood. It evolves into grotesque and inventive methods to twist bodies, create chimeras, and control minds. The thing that separates JoJo's Bizarre Adventure from the animes in this list is the fact that Araki uses vampirism as a launchpad for his work but doesn't allow it to stagnate. Instead, Jojo's bizarre adventure continuously evolves, turning into one of the most iconic masterpieces to have ever been released. Marvelous verdict! Animes based on vampires continue to be a major hit in the industry even today. Shows like Netflix's Castlevania and Ryu Fujisaki's Shiki have kept the standards high in modern times when it comes to featuring these nocturnal, blood-sucking fiends in anime. Just like the immortal monster that they're based upon, it's unlikely that vampires will ever die out in anime and manga. These works that we mentioned today all present a unique take on these creatures, which will likely never be replicated. We hope that with this video, we were able to pique your interest in some of these iconic animes that we featured today. We thank you for sticking with us right to the end of this video. Let us know your favorite anime featuring these bloodsuckers in the comments down below. We're always looking for ideas for new videos. If you like this video, be sure to check out the rest of our channel, which covers all of your favorite characters, animes, and mangas. For now, though, it's time to say goodbye. We hope to see you soon in the next one, but until then, stay safe out there and stay marvelous.